All right, hello boys and girls, this is JC and how are you? And once again, I deliver another yo-yo review. This one is I think is long overdue because I promised a C3 Mega review. I did part 1 with the aluminum ones, and now I want to continue with bimetal, which I think is the most exciting section. I have 16 bimetal yo-yos from C3, and I will not reveal them now. I will do them one by one to have just a little bit of suspense. And I sorted them by chronological order. So the first release, I believe was 2014, all the way until 2022. And the first yo-yo here is the Berserker SS. Now I believe this is the first, it's not the first, but it's the first lineup of bimetals from C3. And this might be the first stainless steel bimetal from C3. Because they made 2 Berserkers before this one, but they were all like weird. They were like 6061 with 7075 rims or something. I played with one. It was awful, I thought. I played with a Berserker RX, and I thought it was terrible. The Berserker SS is the next entry in that lineup. And this one is interesting because it's actually made by a different factory, I guess, than all of the other C3s that I own, as far as I know. This one is made by one called Yo-Yo Empire, which they also make I believe the AE line for Yo-Yo Recreation, also the Rebellion line for them, and they machine a few of the top brands, and they have ridiculously good quality, and there's no exception here. The Berserker SS is, I think, is close to perfect in terms of just quality. And the design is, I think the colors are a bit, I think they're a bit old school, and everything is glossy, which is kind of rare now for C3. Usually now they do either all matte or glossy here in the cup, or just simply a little bit of glossy finish here, but everything else matte. So it's kind of rare to see. Also, this color combination is kind of old school. I'm not sure if it's by choice or if it's because back then their coloring techniques weren't that advanced. But either way, it's a pretty yo-yo, and the logo is really nice. Now, in terms of play, the Berserker SS is actually quite a small yo-yo. It's a feel that I don't really get anymore on nowadays with bimetal yo-yos, because this is, after all, 8 years old. It feels really dense. It's like a lot of weight, a lot of, this is like 68 grams, and it's all packed in a relatively small body. I will once again use the crown as a kind of standard for comparison. You can see this is not really, it's like not that wide, right? And not that big compared to the crown. So we have a lot of weight and a lot of rim weight just packed into this little body here. And it's solid, it performs well, but it feels like almost like a little more brick. I won't say brick, because this yo-yo is still pretty fast, but it feels more brickly than anything I'm used to from a more recent release, at least from C3. So it's a solid yo-yo, but it feels pretty unique. It retailed for $180. $180. Man, back then this was like ridiculous. I think probably only Yo-Yo Recreation was close to this price level. It did come with a diff KK though, which it helps. But yeah, $180. Now C3 has they have adjusted their prices to be a bit more reasonable on some of their models. But either way, back then I think this was probably one of the top yo-yos out there, because it's super good. I mean, it's super good for everything. I've already talked too much on this. Next, although after this one we have a bit like a how many years? Like I'd say 4-year jump. Yeah, because our next yo-yo is from 2018. Now, is it because they didn't release any bimetals during that time? I don't think so. I'm sure they did, but I don't know. I guess the Crown ST is the only one I can think of. I can't think of any other bimetal that C3 would have released during that time. Yeah, so anyway, so I move on to the Atomic Crash, which brings us to 2018. And this is, again, actually pretty recent, because all the yo-yos nowadays are just super good, and this is no exception. This, I believe, was meant to be the C3's version of Dropnir. It is, I don't think it was nearly as popular but it's still one of the most popular releases by C3. Definitely one of the most popular lineups. The Atomic Crash it uses the super fast, it's a slim by today's standard, quite a slim profile, and the specs are really similar to the Dropnir. Now the profile is different because it's got a bit of an H shape to kind of distinguish it from the Dropnir, but let's be honest, it's pretty close. In terms of play, it's not as powerful as the Dropnir, and it's just not as good of a yo-yo, but I'm a huge fan of how the Atomic Crash feels on the string. The way it plays and the way it moves around. I think the speed of this yo-yo is perfect for by my standards. It's not too fast, it's really fast, but not too fast, and it's not too slow. In terms of spin time, it's just a bit shorter than what I would like, but it's more than serviceable, and it does feel a bit smaller now by today's standards. The profile and the size. Yeah, I want to compare it to something. I guess the crown again. So you can see the crown is a pretty standard yo-yo, and the Atomic Crash is actually just a bit smaller, just a bit narrower, and the diameters are near identical. Yeah, so this profile is something that C3 doesn't really do anymore. They go bigger and wider nowadays, which makes this kind of different and unique. And this retailed for $100, which is, again, compare this to the Berserker SS, it's much more reasonable. Yeah, so I think even by today's standard, it's a fine yo-yo to pick up for $100 or whatever you can find it for. Atomic Crash. Next up, Omnitron. This is one of my favorites from C3, just because C3 doesn't really explore their shapes too much. Like, they stick with a few shapes that are tried and true, and they don't really venture far into the unknown, I guess. And with the Omnitron, it's a familiar shape, but it's one that C3 is kind of unique for C3 because, partly because the inner weight ring, and just the overall, I think, the look of the yo-yo, because it is gorgeous. It's really beautiful. It uses 7068 aluminum, which is new. And you can see it's a really nice colorway with beautiful logo, but you can see if you look closely that the splash isn't quite perfect. I do think, I mean, this could be intentional, but I don't think a lot of these fades are intentional. It's supposed to be a clean colorway. So definitely they were probably still exploring the techniques for coloring this yo-yo. Now the Omnitron, I'll start with, this is not the best yo-yo. It has one job, which is to be fast, and it does that super well. I mean, it's one of the best feeling yo-yos when it comes to hitting the string. The feedback it gives, it feels amazing. But if I want to do long, continued combos, or even ones that are more demanding on the spin time and stability, the Omnitron kind of falls short. So I believe we have better options nowadays. But this yo-yo, honestly, it's so pretty, and it's so... I like it a lot. It's like a pet yo-yo where I know it's not the best. And again, when I say not the best, I don't mean it's bad, because we don't really have bad yo-yos nowadays, but there is good and gooder, basically. So, but Omnitron retailed for $120, which is, again, super high for, I mean, C3, all their yo-yos are expensive. I don't want to repeat myself, but 120 is quite a bit. Yeah, I mean, would I recommend this? I don't even know why I keep asking this, because it's all personal preference, but I think there are better options if you're looking for something fast, something that falls within this kind of niche. All right. Next up, the Crown. Yeah, this is called the Crown ST7068. So the same material as the Omnitron over here. I should tilt the camera a little bit. Okay, there you go. Same material as the Omnitron here. But you can see the color is definitely better. It's sharper, it's cleaner, and it's just a beautiful yo-yo all around. And the shape is, again, super unique. I think it's one of the most unique shapes from C3. Because if you look at, I mean, it's hard to see here, but if you compare it to the Atomic Crash, which has kind of a standard shape, yeah, this is really extreme, like a really extreme, a small, wide V shape with just a sharp angle. Yeah, and I don't think small yo-yos were even popular back then, but C3 kind of just stuck with this because this came from an era of, I believe, when people used to play with smaller yo-yos in 2014, 2015. Is that true? I don't know. I took a hiatus during that time. But it's hard to find a yo-yo with this what's it called? With this kind of radius nowadays, or this kind of diameter nowadays. And it definitely feels unique. It kind of has the Brickley feel that the Berserker has, but it's more almost more extreme just because of how small and how sharp it is. Like, this hurts. All right, this yo-yo can hurt if it hits you, especially maybe on the knuckles or, God forbid, on your head. This yo-yo can cause some damage. But if you set that aside, it's a beast. I think this yo-yo is an amazing performer. It does everything, and the size and the diameter definitely allows it to pull off some pretty complicated tech tricks that you wouldn't be able to do with a bigger yo-yo from nowadays. So this Crown ST from 2018, again, why I say the Omnitron isn't the longest spinning. If you compare it to the Crown, the difference is pretty noticeable. I think the Crown is just more stable, more powerful, and maybe a bit slower, but not by much. And this retailed for $120 once again. And I think this is it's really special. So you will have to try this and see if you like it. But it's an extremely popular yo-yo, the signature model of Shinya Kido, and you can't go wrong. Really, it's super good. Next up, the Astria. Yeah, Astria, sure. It's the bimetal version of the old Bastet. This came out in 2019 as well, but this whole thing feels really quite old school. The shape kind of reminds one of the TP profile, but it's I think is a bit too tall, for the lack of a better term. If you look at a more modern design, like, let me spoiler alert this, we have the Edolis, for example. Just look at how wide this, or not how the angle here, how wide the angle here is compared to the Astria. The Astria sure has a what's it called? Some curves here, but you definitely feel how tall this is when you play. It's not really. I don't think this is more of a performance yo-yo, like competition yo-yo. It's an excellent casual throw. It's beautiful. I guess comparing to the Edolis isn't really fair, because Edolis is like just a V-shaped yo-yo, right? So let's see a modern kind of O-shaped yo-yo. How about yeah, there you go. The Socius. There you go, the Socius. Right, if you compare the two here, you can still see that the Socius is just a wider and more, just a wider profile. So the Astria, what is it good for? It's good for more, I guess, more techie tricks, because it definitely is more stable than the average yo-yo. But overall, I think it's more of a casual throw rather than one that pushes the limits of performance, which is totally fine. I mean, it's a beautiful yo-yo. I love it, and I play with it all the time. But it retailed for $100, which is reasonable by C3 standards. And yeah, try this before you buy it. Same with pretty much all of these. You have to try them before you buy, because they all kind of have their perks, and especially when you compare them to yo-yo from 2022, they're not really that far behind, but they do fall just a bit short in certain aspects. And the next is my I think my favorite yo-yo for quite a while. I should keep it here for now. Berserker Max. Berserker Max. Now, comparing this to the Berserker SS, you should notice that, yeah, we definitely made it bigger. We made the steel rings also wider, and I believe thinner, to have a more even weight distribution, which gives you a more comfortable feel on the string, not like a like a brick at the end of the string. The Berserker Max, it's amazing. I played with this as my main throw for a long time, and it does everything. It's powerful, it's fast, it's beautiful. Let me look at the color. Oh, this is also 7075 aluminum, which is much more difficult to anodize as far as I know, but they did an excellent job. Yeah, I see. This yo-yo is so all-rounded. I don't even know what to say about the Berserker Max. Yeah, it's powerful, fast, basically everything I'd want in a yo-yo, and that's why this was my favorite. And from this point on, basically almost every yo-yo is like amazing. This was in 2019. Yeah, I feel like we reached a plateau in terms of yo-yo performance. I don't think, like, if we wait another 5 years, I don't think we're gonna have huge leaps in terms of performance. So every yo-yo from this point on basically is amazing. I can't really find almost anything to complain about. It's possibly because of my skill. Like, my skill level isn't quite a competition player level, so that could be why I can't. I'm sure maybe top players, they would be able to pick out more problems, or more they would have more to talk about basically. But for me, this is just more than I would ever need probably, and this will be a common theme with a lot of the yo-yos after this. Speaking of the perfect yo-yo, the Edalus. Now, Berserker was my favorite for about 2 to 3 years, and the Edalus is the new perfect yo-yo by my standards, because I think it's designed to be just perfect. Like everything, the perfect competition yo-yo. There's nothing creative about it. The shape is super standard. It's like a wider drop here, and yeah, it's got a sweet logo, and the weight distribution is just perfect. Right? You don't really. Again, this yo-yo is really popular for a good reason, because I think it just suits everybody's needs for a competition yo-yo. It does everything. It's stable. It's faster than the Berserker. It's quite a fast yo-yo, and horizontal, big hops, everything is perfect. And it's also not too big, which is important, because C3 and a lot of other brands are going bigger and bigger, and which suits the modern play style, but it kind of gets in the way sometimes with more technical tricks. But the Edalus is just big enough, but not too big, so that it's like just perfect. So I think this is, let me go through all my C3s first, but I think this is currently my at least top 2 in the C3 lineup, maybe top 3. Yeah, the Edalus. Just a quick comparison with the Atomic Crash, which is like the standard for C3 for a while. You can see the Edalus is a bit smaller, but wider. Alrighty, the Edalus goes here. Okay, next up, we have something special. The Galaxy Diver 7075. Oh, I forgot to talk about price, didn't I? $145. Why? I remember talking about this in another review. It's like C3 prices. We have 180, 100, 120, 120, 100, 135, 145. And they justify it kind of with the bearing. This came with a Diffio concave bearing, same with the Berserker. But aside from that, it's like, and nowadays they don't even do the concave anymore, but their prices are still kind of all over the place. And it makes me wonder why. Just because this is a signature model of a top player? Maybe. But again, people bought this. They sold out pretty quickly at 145. So I guess, yeah. It's a sweet yo-yo though. Sweet yo-yo. Okay, sorry, Galaxy Diver. Galaxy Diver 7075. This was released in 2020, retailed at $99. And this uses way more material. See? And just look at the shape, man. It's so wide. I compare this to the Edalus. Man, it's like a monster truck. That's what it feels like. And this yo-yo is, I believe, the longest spinning yo-yo in my collection. And this is including titanium, TISS, including everything. This yo-yo can easily go up to like above 2 minutes if you're not too intense with your tricks. If you try to keep the spin time in mind, you can go 2 minutes 15 seconds without stopping, which is ridiculous. And it's super wide, so it's not suitable for every play style. But if you're a bit of a slower player, if you like, I don't even know if you're slow and you, so you don't need too much speed, but you need this width and you need a long spin time. I'm trying to think of a player with this profile. I'm not sure, but I'm sure it's like another yo-yo that you need to try. You need to try first before buying, and I'm a huge fan of this. It's so unique, especially by C3 standards, and it's beautiful. Like the finish 7075. I can't tell because the finish is perfect. Oh, see, this takes up like 2 parking spots. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Speedaholic. A quick disclaimer, I cannot really review this properly because this is the mystery box version, which apparently they released the mystery box with this, and then they kind of tuned it based on feedback from players. So they shaved about 2 grams or 1.5 grams from this version. So this is only, so if you buy a Speedaholic, it's not gonna be like this one. Speedaholic Max, by the way. And so I can understand why they made the change, because this version of it has nothing to do with speed, man. The name is super misleading. It's like 60, how many grams? 67 grams or something? I think so, yeah, 60, oh no, it might be 60, yeah, 66.5 grams. And it's slow. But this is, I believe, what the Astria should look like if they're looking for a stable, slow, like almost like a turning point-ish yo-yo. This is what it should be, which is kind of interesting because this came from the Bastet 1 and this came from the Bastet 2. So they were definitely going in similar directions, but this design is much more modernized and you can feel it in play. Aside from speed, this one does not have speed, but it has pretty much everything else: stability, power, spin time, and it's a beautiful yo-yo. It retailed for $100. Yeah, super reasonable and nothing. Yeah, again, this one is for a specific kind of player, like maybe Takeshi Matsura style players, and not for the speed demons out there, despite the name. Okay, next up, Vanitas. Oh, this, if you look at the shape, it really looks like the Edelus, doesn't it? It looks a lot like the Edelus. That's what I thought, but when you compare the two, you realize they are actually pretty different. Vanitas is basically the bigger and wider. Actually, is it bigger? Just a little bit bigger and wider Edelus. So I call Edelus the perfect competition yo-yo. Vanitas is like the oversized version of that. It pretty much does everything Edelus can do, but it's bigger and wider, so it's more leaned towards the bigger players, the players with bigger tricks. Meanwhile, the Edelus is more all-rounded, and I believe this is more, the Vanitas is more suited for, I think most of the players nowadays on the competition stage would probably prefer this over the Edelus. But personally, I'm a huge fan of the Edelus just because it allows me to still go small, because the Vanitas is big, powerful, but it does get in the way, especially like when you hold it. It's the same width as the Galaxy Diver, which is super wide. And when you hold things like when you hold these, it's like just uncomfortable almost. Retailed for $100, and yeah, it's an amazing yo-yo. No complaints whatsoever. Next up, we have something a little bit unique. We have the Trion Crash. Now, this is, yeah, it's not tri-metal, but it's got 3 materials. It's got 6061 aluminum, steel, and plastic. Not plastic, poly, crap, what is it called? I forgot the name, but it's polycarbonate? I don't know. It's got some plastic on it, and it's, why do you do it? I mean, Yo-Yo Recreation did the same thing with the Onslaught, And I don't really know. I guess they're just playing with the weight distribution a little bit. But whenever I see yo-yos with unique material combination like this, is like my only question is, can this not be done with just aluminum and steel? I feel like it probably can, but people would buy it. Like, it's because nowadays yo-yos are just all so homogeneous, right? Or so homogenized that you need to come up with something special. And meanwhile, I don't really know if this plastic thing contributes to play. I know that it definitely doesn't help protect the yo-yo, because I've seen this Tron Crash dinged, and there's a huge scrape on the plastic just from one contact with an outdoors ground, and it's terrifying. So I'm scared to bring this outside because the damage is actually much bigger than it would have been on stainless steel, or actually on aluminum, I guess, because this is a inner ring design. But aside from that, the yo-yo is a beast. It's like a better, more updated version of the Atomic Crash. They feel, I feel like I'm running out of space. Maybe this is a bad idea. Ooh, I should shift the camera. That's what I should do. Like this. Yeah, okay. This feels like like this. Okay. It feels like a more updated version of the Atomic Crash. It feels very similar. It is bigger, not bigger, it is wider, and it's got this feel that I love from Atomic Crash. This, when it hits the string, when you speed up with it, it feels wonderful. Now, I did put a NSK bearing inside, but I reviewed it. I played with this for a few weeks without. So yeah, it came with a regular bearing. It retailed for $170. Man, that's a lot. I'm sure, again, they used the material to justify the price, because when you have 3 materials, it's more difficult to machine, and there's a higher chance of a defect, which means B grades. So I guess, yeah, 170 if you want something unique, but it really doesn't feel that unique. Oh, the sound it makes on the string is a little bit different. It feels almost like a plastic yo-yo, the sound it makes. But aside from that, I don't feel a huge difference. But again, pretty much everything in this roll, including they are just amazing competition yo-yos. Yeah. So yeah, it's an excellent yo-yo. Next up, I'm getting tired of saying the word amazing. We have the Hydrogen Crash. Oh, I forgot to remove the string. The Hydrogen Crash is the newest bimetal crash. And once again, I compare it to the Atomic Crash. It's got a similar-ish stepped kind of V shape, but this one is just wider with bigger weight rings. And it's the same weight at 63 grams. So these two are the same weight, but this is just bigger. And I believe with more weight on the rings as well. And this is, I think, the best performing crash of them all, including the Tron Crash. It reminds me of the Yo-Yo Factory Pragma, but almost even a bit better than that, because it's fast, and at the same time it has the stability of like the Berserker Max, right? But it's wider, it's faster, and it does everything. I don't quite like the feel of this yo-yo compared to the Etalus, because the Etalus is just a very simple, straight up V shape. But the Hydrogen Crash, it does feel a little bit, not sure what the word would be. It feels heavier, like it's slightly less comfortable on the string. But in terms of performance, it's amazing. And this version I have is another mystery box version, but as far as I know, they didn't make any changes to the official release. So yeah, this is what you will get if you spend $110 to get a Hydrogen Crash. Anything else I need to say about this? Nope, Hydrogen Crash, excellent. I'm just looking for something a little bit different, because now it's just a bunch of yo-yos that are incredibly good, but if I try to say, like, find something different to say about them, I struggle, because they are They're actually quite similar, I think. Especially the Hydrogen Crash with the Trion Crash with the Edolas Berserker Max. They all kind of fall within the same, a similar, I guess, similar niche of, not niche, a similar play profile. They suit the speedier competition type of player. The next yo-yo was a bit of a pleasant surprise. It is the Crown ST. So you know how the original Crown ST had nothing to do with the actual crown? Like, this is the crown. It literally the name is the only thing that's the same. But this one actually went to the almost the exact shape of the crown, the classic crown, but except it's bimetal. And when I saw this released, I'm pretty sure most people expected this to be a faster yo-yo, because it is, again, Shinya Kido signature. So you expect it to be faster, to be more aggressive, but turns out it's actually not. I don't know if you're familiar with the Duncan Grasshopper GTX. That was one of my favorite yo-yos. And this is really similar to that. It's actually a slower yo-yo. Like, it's slow, it's stable. It's like the Grasshopper GTX was the signature model of Janos. So if you imagine that style, the crown feels like it falls into that category for some reason. It's a bit faster, like the V is a bit sharper, and the weight is, I believe, is a bit lighter, just a bit lighter at 63.5. But I wouldn't go fast with this yo-yo. I would just go tech. I would go more Janos rather than Shinya Kido, which was quite a bit of quite a surprise to me. But I'm glad, because I already have all these fast competition yo-yos. I don't want another one. And yeah, so I'm glad this is something different. So don't buy this expecting it to be a speed demon, to be one of those, to be like an Edolas. No, this is kind of slower, more stable yo-yo. Also, amazing performance. We're almost done here. And next we have something kind of special. We have the Omnitron Noah. Now this, once again, I don't know why See-Through does this. They just use names, and the yo-yos have nothing to do with each other. This is the Omnitron. This is the Omnitron Noah. Why? I don't know. But this is aluminum, 6061 aluminum body with titanium weight rings, which is really unique. And this retailed for $220, which is like almost a full titanium price. And is this yo-yo good? Oh, it's so good. I think the shape is actually similar-ish to the Crown ST, the old Crown ST, but only with titanium are you able to make the rims this big or this wide, because titanium is a bit lighter than stainless steel. So I think the shape is quite similar, but the Omnitron it feels softer on the string, but just as fast, but I believe more stable, more tolerating. And especially when I do horizontal with my crappy horizontal abilities, the Omnitron is, and it definitely lives up to its name. Omnitron is super fast, probably one of the fastest C3s while still being super stable. Is this something that only titanium can do? I'm not sure, but it is that. So for $220, you get something that feels unique and is actually possibly quite unique as well in reality. So the Omnitron Noah. Second last yo-yo here is the Socius. Now this one I did a full review on, so I'm not going to talk too much. This is the Shion Araya signature model, and it's basically a competition yo-yo with a organic feel, which I'm a huge fan of. Like, it feels comfortable, feels nice to throw because of the round shape and the super wide steel rims with a more even weight distribution, but it's also fast, aggressive. It can do pretty much everything you want it to do. And it's got these blasted rings that make everything just easier, or less risky, because you don't really worry about kind of scraping it mid-trick. The only complaint I have about this yo-yo is the price. $145 without the concave bearing, without anything special, just literally 145 in your face. And why, I don't know. But aside from that, this yo-yo is excellent. Last one is the Galaxy Diver. Once again, I reviewed this yo-yo. This is like a bigger, more powerful Omnitron Noah. Aluminum, titanium. Now, one thing I noticed is the splash on this is actually not quite as sharp as I would expect, because this is a 6061 body, and you'd imagine that C3 would have this perfected by now. But you see that a lot of the colors, they're not as sharp. Like I don't think this is intentional, because they don't really do it on any other yo-yo with a more. This actually looks like was on the Omnitron, right, with a kind of a faded look on the splash. It's possible that this was intentional, but I'm gonna guess that this didn't come out quite the way they expected. But in terms of performance, it's brilliant. I did a full review on this. This, again, it's not as fast as the Omnitron, but it's one of the yo-yos that really combines speed and stability so well that I don't think any other yo-yo I own does it to this extent. It's crazy stable, and it's also not slow. Whereas, for example, the Galaxy Diver, which is I guess the same shape, this is much slower. It has the stability, but it's slower. Meanwhile, the Dinosaur is stable and fast. So here are all the C3s, if I can zoom out a little bit. And this will be the main idea here, is that C3 yo-yos are my favorite. It's my favorite brand. They are beautiful. And nowadays, I feel like yo-yo design has come to a point where you can't really go wrong with anything. Especially C3, who are kind of hesitant to be super creative with their shapes. They stick with what works for them, and the yo-yos they make nowadays are just perfect in almost every way. Sure, there might be slight variations, like the Galaxy Diver, like the Vanitas is kind of huge, but I mean, when you look at all of these yo-yos, they're all just trying to hold the camera here. They're all just excellent performers, and I cannot find any. I'm sure any world champion can just blindly take any yo-yo from post basically Berserker. Honestly, even anything here really, you can take onto a competition stage, and it wouldn't really hinder you much. But especially the ones that are from 2019 onwards, and they are just, yeah, I'm out of words, really. Thank you for sticking with me. I think that's all. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.